Well, welcome to Military Matters here in Reno. This is Ricky Harold, the Major, and we got obviously Colonel Fleck, and we've got our great guest, Raul Casillas, today from, I guess the official name would be, Raul?
Wounded Warriors Family Support.
There you go. Now, remember, this is a show about veterans, for veterans, and everything regarding veterans and the issues that impact the lives of our veterans. And our goal is always to be insightful, factual, and thought-provoking. And Raul, we have you today. We've had you on guests on our regular radio station at 93.7, and now we have you on our podcast, which is our new program. And we're really appreciative that you've come here today to talk about Wounded Warrior Family Support Group and what they do, how they do it. And this is our opportunity through our podcast business to amplify what we're doing for our veterans and what you are specifically doing for your veterans, as well as what we do on the Mustang Car Club that we do for veterans as well. So it's great that we have you today, and we want you to talk.
Glad to be here. Yes, as you mentioned, I've been here before, and I participated ever since the inception of Wounded Warriors Family Support, and that was in 2003. Colonel John Folsom, who is a colonel in the Marines, helicopter aviator, began the program, and he began it with just basically passing a hat after the 2001, and he noticed a lot of people being injured and decided to try to do something. So he went ahead and got a 2003 Mustang GT 500, and he drove across the country all by himself, running, meeting people, and just asking for donations, and that was quote-unquote pass the hat. The Mustang itself was a 500 horsepower Mustang, Purple Heart on the hood, and is wrapped with a red, white, and blue all along the sides. And we encountered it, I think, in 2004 here in Reno. He decided he couldn't do this all by himself. In other words, drive a car throughout the country and soliciting for donations. So that's where we got involved. The Wounded Warriors Family Support is a 401c3, and it's located in Omaha, Nebraska. That's where it began.
SAC headquarters, huh?
That's affirmative.
Awful off it.
Yeah. So, but what they did, the inception has changed considerably. Every year for about 6 or 7 years, a brand new Mustang drove across the country. We got involved in all the different Mustang clubs and people throughout the country, taking it from one city to another and soliciting these donations. Way back in the old days when they had one of the first Mustangs.
You're talking about the wagon trains?
Yeah. Not quite that old, but the first Mustang.
6 mule train.
But this Mustang was a little bit faster than that. But they did take it to Barrett-Jackson and in the auction there, and it sold for $1 million the first time ever. And all that money went back into the fund for the Wounded Warriors Family Support. Interesting note is that the Ford company never gave him the Mustang or anything. He paid it out of his pocket. And then when they got the money back, he put the money back in his pocket and went ahead, turned around, and bought another one.
Hey, now, Raul.
Yes.
You brought the Mustang here to the radio station. How long ago has that been already?
Well, it's been about 7 years or so, because we had about 5 or 6 Mustangs, one every year that we drove. And, of course, they sold at Barrett-Jackson or moved on to other things. But then, if you remember, we had a couple of Raptor trucks that we drove, and the Raptor truck looked just like the Mustang, a big Purple Heart wrapped with the red, white, and blue, except for a little bit different on a Raptor truck because it had a camper shell on the back, and what it was designed for was a individual
amputee.
that would have immobility, maybe have no legs or unable to participate. There was cockpit chairs, and the cockpit chair would come out and go down to the ground. The individual in his wheelchair could get into that chair, push a button, the camper shell would open, and then there would be a little crane come out, pick up his wheelchair, and go back inside to the camper shell and it would close, then he would proceed in the cockpit chair, go up into the cockpit of the Raptor, and it was mobility, hand control, all hand controls to drive the thing.
Where do you get the money? Where do the donations come from?
From everybody. When cars went across the country and people donating here and there. I know one year, many, many years ago, one of the Ford Mustangs, they would take it into the truck assembly lines and also the Mustang assembly lines. And many years ago, I saw a great big check that came from 3 different hours, and it was 8 hours times 3 shifts, and I believe it was like $25,000 or $30,000 from there.
Now you got some notoriety, if I remember. You were on national TV donating a Mustang, was it not?
That is correct. Every year at the end of the time, if during Veterans Day, November 11th, he would be on Fox and Friends in the morning, and the colonel would be there with, if he had the vehicle, he would be there with the vehicle, or if the vehicle was being sold or whatever, and would tell the people about what went on. So every year, again, through people donating, and what are they donating for? Well, there's a kind of excitement because right in May 3rd of 2025, some of this money that we've been gathering, etc., and they're going to build a Dunham House in Omaha, Nebraska. And this Dunham House is a new thing. I believe somebody donated, I can't remember the acres, but they donated acreage for this home. And what this home's going to be is going to be a facility to, like a TBI, traumatic brain injury individuals or other people that have been wounded in combat, and they're going to have room for about 30 or so individuals. So
is this like a retirement home or just a residence?
More of a medical convalescent type home, stuff like that.
And it'll also be a 501c3.
Yes.
Okay.
And again, it's the inception. We talked about that the last few years when we started driving the Raptor. They were going to try to go ahead and do this. It's a considerable amount of money. I know that supposedly it's a $13.9 million investment in this home to go ahead and try to help these vets. You know, a lot of people at the TBI, that's the worst thing because, again, the person could look normal and everything else like that, but have internal problems in their...
Well, you know, anything from ringing into the ears to migraine headaches. I mean, there's all kinds of issues that they have, and
exactly
that you can't see, but is internal of the individual from traumatic brain injury.
And Raul, I was going to ask you, Ricky's bringing it up now. How's this going to be staffed, and how will that staff be paid for?
Well, that would be part of the money, I guess, that goes in. Again, they still look for donations. The Wounded Warrior, there's a good way to get a hold of them. You could check on the computer, ws.org, and that will get you into the internet, and there's all kinds of ways to go ahead and donate. You could write your name and donate that way. And again, it goes through the entire program in the computer. And nowadays, of course, they're starting, of course, with this home that they're building. But what they've been around for years, what they do is many things. They have a caregiver respite. In other words, people that have been injured or the families of somebody wounded, they provide them with caregiver. And again, and besides that, they also look to help the families. They do a lot of, when you get on the computer, you can see the retreats. Let's say Mr. and Mrs. Smith and a couple kids, they send them to Orlando for 4 days or different activities to get away from all of the severe problems that the families would be encountering.
So they offer them like some sort of recreational facilities for them to have a way to unwind and de-stress from just the unimaginable issues that everyone has to deal with. But it's important that it's for the veteran and their immediate family, right?
Yes. And again, you got to remember, this is for the veterans that were wounded in combat, or, of course, if the individual was lost in combat, the families also have that benefit. So that's another thing they take care of. Another one is mobility is freedom, and that's one of the things we talked about when we drove these vehicles. And there's a vehicle grant of like up to $30,000. Say Sergeant Smith was wounded and he needs a vehicle. Well, there's a whole way you get into computer and again be selected by the Wounded Warrior Family Support Organization. And through that, they could actually supplement an individual going out and buying a vehicle, whether it be a vehicle that might be for mobility or just a plain, plain old car. But that's
So
not part of it.
What about the role of volunteers? They got to be important in organizations like this.
Yeah, I've seen it on the Charity Navigator. Of course, they're a 4-star, and the colonel is like the Emirates. I mean, he's like the president, past president. They have individuals in the office. There are very few people that are actually,
Salaries.
salaried and stuff like that. And I've seen up to maybe 95% of whatever money's come in go to pay for these activities. So one interesting thing that they also do, and I think the program's closed at least for this year, but in conjunction with the Ford Motor Company and a UAW of Ford, they have provide training for welding. And a guy goes through a 6-week program if he's selected. And through that, the people learn how to weld and then occurring to get their certification for welding. And that training is in the Ford Center at Lincoln Park in Michigan, which is near Detroit. So again, a guy is getting educated. You know how important it would be for having a welding certificate. And this is something that again, that they could give to the individual.
How are you affiliated? I know you are with other veterans organizations.
It's completely independent. They get them mixed up with other organization, but this is a standalone organization. They're relatively small compared to, they don't have a TV and radio and all that. A relatively small organization.
Because it's not corporate sponsored.
Right. I think in the past they've spent like $8.5 million on these respite areas to help the families. They've actually spent like almost $10.5 million for the vehicles or the supplement their vehicles for the individuals. And that's all part of it. So the main thing is to check on the computer. It outlays everything that's possible, whether you want to go ahead and volunteer or see the different programs and a way to go ahead and you could personally contact them, of course.
So you're talking about volunteering for a broad brush of programs.
Yes.
And I think that clarifying that, you said standalone. Each one is a standalone program.
Well, it's under the umbrella of the Wounded Warrior Family Support.
Gotcha.
But again, they have these different programs. And like I said, when you see the pictures in there of the different families, where there be 2 people or 4 or 6 people in the family, and how they just, these getaways, so to speak, to really take off their mind about what traumatic things have transpired. Again, these guys have been wounded, or God forbid, somebody that was, KIA. So
I know it's on a regular basis. We'll see Wounded Warrior on television. So it does get its advertisement, so to speak, or broadcast out there to people. But your project, the Wounded Warrior Family Support Group, is an independent.
That's correct. There is the Wounded Warrior Project, and that's a rather large organization. You see, they give blankets or whatever, but that is completely separate. That it's been confused over the years. And again, the main thing is to try to help these families in what has transpired. And again, Charity Navigator really talks about how successful you could look. And there's probably 150 or 200 different organizations for veterans. And to see from a 4-star all the way down to 1-star, no star, the lower the star, that means that money is going in and lining somebody's pockets.
A lot of it goes for administrative and operational. And we want an organization that's a 4-star like yours, which 95 cents on the dollar. I mean, literally almost everything, just the very bare minimum amount of money is going to keep the organization running. It's not there to line people's pockets. It's not there for them to make money. It's there to take care of veterans.
Exactly. But that's a general over what there is for this organization. Again, www.www on the computer to check that out.
Yeah, why don't you give them the email and the phone number, because our listeners love
I didn't
this
write
stuff.
the phone number down, but
Okay.
it is wwfs.org. And again, and it's kind of cool that they just came out with that they're starting the Dunham House, and that'll be supposedly completed in next July of 2026.
And how much you said that they currently have in the coffers to do this program?
Well, the Dunham House is like $13.8 million or something. Whether that's in the coffers, I can't tell you that.
Yeah. Well, you know what we always say? In the coffers is one thing. I want to see the money implemented for where it should go. I think we always feel that
But
way.
it was important, I think, that somebody did contribute the land, so you could imagine what that's worth. And it is interesting to get on the computer because you can see the outlay of what the building is actually like. And it would be, besides the building.
You mean the artist concept, you mean?
Yeah. And you got to remember, besides the building, you got to have staff with, the colonel was addressing like doctors or administrators or nurses, et cetera. So that's a lot of money.
Gentlemen, just to let you know that phone number, the main office in Omaha, Nebraska, all of these have a 402 area code. So main office 402-502-7557. The program office is 402-932-7036. And it says if you do need help outside of business hours, call 402-932-7036.
Well, thank you very much. We appreciate that our listeners have numbers that they can reach at 24/7, and that we have a location and numbers that if you don't have you can always go to a library and get on the internet. But
Ricky both of us always say, I think all of us support, get a pencil and paper out there. Anytime we have a guest, Raul, you're no exception, you're going to give a lot of good information. And maybe we miss it one time around, but you know what? We'll catch it again before we wrap up the podcast. So get a pencil and paper out there.
Works for me.
Okay. Now, there's a big organization out there. We want to get this understood. There's a big organization which has a CEO. It's called the Wounded Warrior Foundation, correct?
Wounded Warrior Project.
Okay. Now, that's your headquarters, you said, in Omaha, Nebraska. Is that correct?
Wounded Warriors Family Support is in Omaha, Nebraska.
Okay.
the project is a whole different organization.
Well, I want to clear that up because in the past, you're talking about Charity Navigator. In the past, there's been some confusion on these organizations. And
because the names are fairly similar.
Well, but I think you made it clear that the Wounded Warrior Project, Family Project, is a lot different than what some people may think about the large Wounded Warrior. Can you kind of distinguish that a little bit more for us?
All I can say is the name. It's Wounded Warrior Project is what you see on TV or a lot of advertisements where you might donate something and they give you a blanket. Wounded Warrior Project. We have nothing to do with that. We are Wounded Warriors Family Support.
Okay.
Period.
We want to clear that up.
That's it.
Because in the past, there's been some issues.
Right.
But
Well,
not
it's
with
easy
y'all.
to mix the two because the names are very similar, and people hear Wounded Warrior and they don't even listen to the rest of the names.
Exactly right.
And I think Raul's been pretty precise in the sense that it's the family support group that he deals with and what we're talking about for our veterans, and not to be misunderstood with the other program, which has a lot of VIPs, has a lot of big name motion picture actors and songwriters and movie stars and stuff like that. And, just to amplify to our listeners, everybody thinks that these people that get on there and they use their name and their organization and they say they support the veterans, they're all getting paid. I mean, they're not doing this out of the altruistic for themselves. I mean, it's sad, but it's true that these people are getting paid. So when you see a big name star up there and they're giving their recommendation or their endorsement, it's because they've actually been paid to do that. It's called a paid endorsement. And if you And nobody ever looks at the bottom toolbar, but it says right on the bottom toolbar that goes really, really fast that this is a paid-for announcement, and Kevin Costner or whoever the person is, they have received compensation. They don't tell you how much they're getting, but they're actually doing this because they're getting paid. And what Raul's talking about is everybody who works in this organization, with a few exceptions of the paid employees, they're all volunteers. They're all doing this out of the kindness of their heart. They're doing it because they want to care for wounded veterans who need assistance. They need mobility. Now they're talking about the home for the home care for these individuals and transition care. This is what we as Americans do for each other. We don't ask the government to come down and give us their royal authorization to do this. We as Americans will step up and do it amongst ourselves. But you know why? Because it's the right thing to do. Isn't that right, Raul?
Affirmative.
And like anything else, Raul, everyone wants to know accountability. If I'm going to donate to you, where's my money going? I think you made that quite clear.
Yes. Yeah, as I mentioned, probably a couple hundred organizations that have to do with veterans and, donating. And you could always get on that Charity Navigator. If somebody else has an organization that you might be interested in, check it out before you give the money.
Are you not rated top 10 or have been rated top 10?
It goes by the stars and stuff like that.
And it's a 4-star, yeah.
It's a four-star.
Yeah. So I call you a top 10er.
Yeah.
Maybe number one.
That works for us.
We all want to be number one.
Well, one thing we haven't done, and we normally do this at the very beginning. Who is Raul Casillas? And what's your military career, sir?
Well, I was a naval aviator at the end of Vietnam, so got my wings and flew A-7 Echo Corsairs off carrier Coral Sea. So spent 2 cruises on the Coral Sea flying. And in fact, I left after my second cruise, and my brother was also an aviator, and he went to the same squadron, and he replaced me, basically. And I went back to the United States, went through 2 or 3 different schools, and I became a exchange pilot to the Venezuelan Air Force. Flew with the Venezuelans, teaching them in Spanish every day how to fly jet aircraft. From there...
And what aircraft were they?
They were flying a T-2 Buckeye, which was their advanced trainer, which is just like the Navy, used to be the Navy's basic trainer. But they were flying there. I flew a Jet Provost, which is a British aircraft, and then a T-34, which is a little single-engine prop plane. But from there on into Advanced Training Command in Beeville, Texas, with teaching naval aviators instead of Air Force Venezuelans. And from there, I went to the airline, spent 29 years at the airline.
Who was easier to teach, Air Force or Venezuelans?
Well, you could yell at the Venezuelans and hit them over the head, where you can't do that with Navy pilots.
Is that because Navy pilots are a little harder headed?
No, that's because of our rules in America.
Raul, by the way, I just got a ping on my cell phone. The Venezuelan Chief of Naval Operations is inviting you to come back.
Yeah. Yeah. I think they'll put me in jail.
They're looking for a new bombing operation.
Actually, when I was in Venezuela, it was the most democratic country in all of Latin America.
It was also the richest country.
The richest. Their bolivar, which is their dollar, their bolivares, 4 bolivares to our American dollar. Probably now it's something like 500,000 bolivares to our dollar.
Stick it in a wheelbarrow, huh?
Yeah, exactly.
Well, it just goes to show you socialism really works, right?
Yeah, yeah. Just keep that in mind.
Yeah, people, I think, in New York City better take a history lesson from the country of Venezuela, where you go from socialism to communism in a short New York minute, and then all of a sudden like old Maggie Thatcher used to say, socialism is a wonderful concept and it's a great program until you run out of other people's money, and then you're just plain screwed.
It's a beautiful country and some beautiful people there, of course, the people that work for a living, but it was the government that screwed it up because they were very rich in oil. They still are rich in oil, of course.
Let me ask you a question. Your Wounded Warrior Family project that you do.
Support
project. How broad are you? Are you just within the United States? There's military bases abroad
It's just United States. You'd have to
United
look
States.
from Omaha out. Like I mentioned, it's relatively small. So Omaha is really the center of the earth.
Yeah, I knew that.
As long as you're in beautiful Nebraska, right?
Yeah. No
Yeah.
comment.
Is
Well,
there,
you don't have to.
Is there any minimum gift that you asked folks to donate?
No, not at all. So again, they make it easy. There's all on the internet, as you guys have checked, that you put your name and how much you want to donate, and then comments. You can make comments or questions or how can I help? Quote unquote. So again, it's a little bit different because we were really up front when we got those vehicles every year and drove those vehicles across the country, and we would hand it off from one person to another. We were fortunate because one of the last times I had a vehicle was one of the Raptors, and we happened to have Hot August Nights, which is the first week in August,
Yeah,
and
here
we
in
took
Reno.
that thing right downtown Virginia Street and had everybody, you only got to have old cars there, but we had the capability to put it right in the center of the Hot August Nights on Virginia Street, and got a lot of donations, people signing, etc. And we did a lot of activities. I actually had the vehicle for 26 days for August Raptor.
Is there any special reason why they're not doing it anymore?
I can't answer that. I know they have an organization a little bit with Microsoft because Microsoft had a deal a few years ago where they had a Mustang or a truck, probably a truck from one end of the country on the East Coast and the other was on the West Coast. And they drove and they got donations, et cetera, and they ended up somewhere around, Mustang, Oklahoma or something like that in the center of the country. But that was a few years ago that they did that.
Oh, back to your program itself. How do you? I think you mentioned it, but how do you help the transitioning military member getting out of the service, or do you help them and their families?
I'm not sure if they deal with administrative, other than the programs that I mentioned. That I'm not sure if they do an organization to help them in that respect. I can't answer that.
Well, there's a big issue, and we talk about it every week, and is do something about our homeless veterans. When you're talking family, you're talking possibility there's a homeless veteran out there. How much involved have you gotten or your organization got involved with getting these people the help they need?
I don't think so. I don't think they deal with the homeless, to tell you the honest to God truth, because everything that they've written it doesn't mention the homeless people at all.
Wow.
Again, they're in a different category. The major emphasis is somebody that was wounded in combat or, God forbid, as I mentioned, killed in combat.
And how do they determine who is the recipient of the vehicle or is now going to the facility for the traumatic brain injury?
That's all, goes to Omaha, and their selection process is how they do that. I don't know. But again, when you get on the internet or, as we mentioned earlier, calling into Omaha and say, I'm a veteran and I need help, and go from there.
So it's all basically online. People determine their needs and then they acquire the information through the internet. They go online and they get a determination and, I guess, a process by which they make their pitch as far as assistance and association. I guess one of the issues that probably comes up in the minds of a lot of our listeners would be, how do they determine somebody who's already receiving benefits because of TMI or because of their combat injuries or their injuries while they're on active duty, and then the determination between what the VA offers, what the federal government programs offer versus what the Wounded Warrior Family Project associates? You see my definition?
I know what you're asking, but you, again, refer to the center of the earth, Omaha, Nebraska. So obviously these guys that probably all have benefits, whether it be 100% or 50% or whatever, and going through the program. But again, when somebody, they look at everybody, and again, a lot of these programs I'd already mentioned are closed for the year. They're very small programs, They only take X amount of people, and the programs close pretty quick. So basically, they're probably looking at 2026. So you call in and say, I'd like to get on the welding program. I think the welding program is closed because they only take X amount of people, 1 or 2 classes. So get your name on the list, start talking to the people in Omaha, try to get on the list and get signed up for 2026.
So is it a calendar year or is it a fraternal year that they make the
Must be
determination?
a calendar year. Yeah.
So like if you were serious about 2026, you'd be doing it sometime now
I
to
would.
be applying
Sure.
for whatever programs that would work
Yeah.
for the individual, right?
Yeah. And that's not to say that the family, taking the families out to Disneyland or again a camping ground for 2 or 3 days. That kind of stuff probably still open. But
Well, now, you
You know.
brought a good point. Who's taking the families out? Are these mostly volunteers?
well, I don't know. I don't know if they just give them the tickets and then the individuals go out there, the family. That's
okay.
basically
Sure.
because all the pictures it shows the family out there and they're out there. It's all paid for whatever kind of activity that they want to do.
Now, there's more than welding programs out there. Where would I find this information if I'm looking at one of these standalone programs?
Yeah. Right there, go on the internet, and right there it talks about the different programs. There's about 6 or 7 programs. There was one that I didn't mention, and it's kind of a little bit different. It was for what do they call that? A financial education. And again, this is something I hadn't seen, but
Be like a financial advisor or something?
no, more like maybe going to school for a couple, like 1 day a week for 8 weeks or something like that. Something had to do with finances.
To learn finances? I mean,
I think so.
like for your
Yeah.
family, how to do a budget. And
Maybe so. Yeah, something. It talked about finances is what they did.
Yeah,
And that was
yeah.
something that looked new. That was something I happened to catch today that I was not familiar with.
And that prompts another question. These programs, are these colleges, universities, affiliations, credits? I'm going to go to school, and who's going to teach me, and what am I going to get out of a certificate? I know it's hard unless you
Yeah.
dig in and look on a
Yeah.
website, but
Well, certain things need certifications and others just need authorizations.
Yeah. The only one that I had mentioned that I saw that talks about certification was the welding program.
Okay.
And I think that's extremely important because you're quote unquote a blue collar individual, and to get that certificate is really, and I think from there you've got a shoe in also
Yeah.
with the Ford Motor Company. So you know how
wow.
important something
Well,
like
which
that
is probably affiliated and put some
It is.
cash up.
It's the
Sure.
Ford UAW is who's sponsoring that thing.
And you brought another good point. We've had TMCC Upward Bound on our program here twice, 3 times. And the big push now is what you're alluding to with the welding and others. Teaching what we probably had in high school. Either you could take an auto class or you could take a electrical
Shop class you're talking
Shop class.
Yep.
That's coming back, it seems like,
Yeah.
because that's where a lot of the money is.
Yeah, that I think is extremely important nowadays.
Yeah.
You don't need a $50,000 you owe a college or something.
More like
to get.
couple-
Yeah, like my history major, that went well.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, you always learned about what was that, like the song, the rise and fall of the Roman Empire and medieval activities that happened in Europe, and those kind of things are all interesting, but they don't necessarily get you a job where you can actually work a 9-to-5 job and learn a business that will talk about the history of the Roman Empire. So it's I get that part, but I even had an undergraduate degree in history. I didn't think it was a bad way to go, but it does give you an upward mobility in learning about how to deal with people.
That's exactly it.
And that's, when you deal with people, that's the name of the game. And just looking at people and realizing that what you bring to the table to offer somebody in an employment opportunity is huge. And like you're talking about, when we're talking individuals who are learning trade craft, be it a plumber or an electrician or HVAC or any of the other trades, these are highly paid skills that there's a whole generation of men and women who are retiring, and those jobs only are getting more expensive and they're all getting more in demand. So I think you're all right when it comes to what we can do for trade here, especially up here in Northern Nevada. My gosh, trying to get somebody just to come out and do some basic work on your home is is a real hard. It's a hard road to hoe for homeowners to get somebody to come out and work. So I agree. I mean, we need more young people and people of skills that's coming out as veterans to assist us in that program, and we can use all the help that we can get.
Raul, I saw something here. Honor a loved one with a personalized memorial donation. Can we do that? Could I donate?
I don't see why not.
I mean, I could say, I want this money to go
Yeah,
to.
that's interesting. Sure.
It would be very interesting.
Yeah,
Well, it's certainly better than giving it to the tax man, right?
that's for sure.
At least
Yeah.
you know that the money that you gave or the donation you made has
Yeah.
gone to a certainly worthwhile program and cause that you individually liked and wanted to help your fellow man, and
Yeah.
not just give it to some tax man who decides, goes into some general coffer and everybody else spends it like drunken sailors. And we don't necessarily need any more of that kind of program.
Yeah, you could do that everywhere. I know for us naval aviators, we have Tailhook coming up at the end of August.
Oh, yeah.
It's always in Reno, and for the last 30 plus years. And they have, you could donate, your family could donate it into the Tailhook for scholarships. We have hundreds of thousands of dollars of money that's gone into scholarships for Navy families, individuals that are young and ready to go to college. So you could donate to anybody nowadays. So
We come a long way with regard to honoring our combat, non-combat female military members. I'm going to assume an organization such as yours, it doesn't care. I mean, you're a veteran. If we can help you, we're going to help you. So there's nothing to worry about there. Because the reason I say that is because we've been emphasizing that on some of our shows, Raul. And one thing we're talking about that also leads to how much do you get involved with prevention of suicide? You say you have a lot of traumatic brain injury. I'm sure you deal with post-traumatic stress within the organization you're with. How do you deal with educating and looking out for people and watching for this?
well, you're going to have to go to other sources because, again, this home that they're going to start building will, build on that and hopefully help the individuals and get the proper medical care that somebody needs. But again, that's such an important thing nowadays that you pick up the newspaper or in the internet and read about that and how many veterans we're losing every day because of unforeseen traumatic brain injuries or whatever that nobody really knew about or caught.
Well, they don't get diagnosed.
Exactly.
Go, Ricky.
No, I'm just going to say a lot of the individual veterans themselves don't know. I mean, they just assume that they're all normal, and then all of a sudden there's a trigger that changes their whole personality and their perspective, and it comes on like in a rush. It's not like it's gradual. A lot of times it becomes instantaneous, is from what I've read.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, some trigger that gets them into a really bad situation.
Well, we always say if you're a veteran, there's a crisis line out there. 988-1, you'll get a trained specialist. Someone's going to get on the line and help you out. And don't be surprised if that person on line wasn't a former patient themselves having an issue.
Very good point.
So we always, I think the bottom line is whatever military organization we're talking about and affiliations such as yours supporting families, we still look out for each other when you get out of service. You're always a team.
Yeah, I think up here at least Reno, from what I've seen, they have some pretty good facilities to help. I'm just talking about in general, besides the VA hospital. And one of my friends right now is a Northern Nevada Veterans Home out in Sparks. It's a beautiful facility out there. And, of course, we got the home that we contribute to every year, Reno Mustang Car Club, the one right next to the hospital.
You mean the Veterans Guest House?
The Veterans Guest House. So I mean, they've got we're small up here in Reno, but they've got a lot of good programs for our veterans here also, which is good.
I got a question for you. Your organization, you can't do everything. You can help family support.
Oh, I don't know. Raul's pretty resilient.
Yeah.
He's resilient, but I think he would admit, can you reach out for help if you need it outside of your organization?
Sure, of course.
Okay.
Yeah.
And Normally, who's that with? Would it be like, would it be Work for Warriors, or would it be the VA hospital, or?
Of course, the VA hospital, I think, would be the first contact to get there. They're, with all the different individuals they have to protect you in the VA hospital, and walk in and say, I have a problem, and you're no different than every other veterans around that may need help. You may not think you need help, but it would be advantageous to go ahead and check it out just to be safer.
Well, do you mind if we throw a plug to help a veteran?
Of course not.
Okay. The Veterans Guest House has a website, as you know. And it was a gentleman, a veteran, who lost everything. You may have heard about him up in Levin Valley. I think his name was Leroy.
I heard about it.
He lost everything. And
During the fire, yeah.
Yeah, Ricky and I, we always will promote this. Folks, get on the veteransguesthouse.org. Go to Help Leroy, and if you can donate to help this man. He's a veteran. You're talking about family. We're talking about veterans. We're talking about the team. Get out there and help this man if you can, because he has nothing. And so I guess we are quite blessed with all the help and assistance that we can provide. It's a wonderful community, this Northern Nevada area, you would agree. If you go elsewhere, and we've talked to people, you go elsewhere, you won't get the support, I don't think, that you get here. So I just wanted to share that with you.
Well, we kind of know that because we've had the Access Foundation and others that were from Northern California who had really good support in Northern California. And when they come to Northern Nevada, the first thing out of their mouths is that here it's 10 times more support than what they're used to in very favorable veterans organizations in Northern California. So if you can just imagine somewhere that it's not as veteran friendly, and you come here, it's just like night and day difference.
If it wasn't for the Veterans Guest House, as an example, there are veterans that are living out there in Elko or in the east part of Nevada,
Ely.
and again, they have to come into the VA for hospitalization or for checkups or something. Have to stay 2 or 3 days. The families, the wife that would bring him in, or him or her in. And again, they had to go to stay in a casino or something. A lot of these people can't afford that. But that's what so good about the Veterans Guest House, because the family's taken care of. Don't worry. I mean, and I've been in there a couple times, and it's been increased in size, and it's a very wonderful facility.
Yeah, it's like a 36-bed facility now, and just not just that, but they support the people, the families, but they provide the food, they provide clothing, they provide pet care. I mean, it's amazing what they do, and it's all volunteers.
Yeah.
None of it is subsidized by any government agency, be it local or state or federal. It is completely 100% charitable donations. There are some larger corporations that do put in some large chunks of money, but regardless, the majority of the money comes from people like you listeners out there, $10, $15, $20. That's where they get their donations, and they make a difference to our families out there.
And again, it's right next to the VA hospital.
Yeah.
And to our audience that's listening and will listen, this entire discussion has been about family, about support. So it's not like we're deviating, we're going way off track, but we're going to have the Veterans Guest House as one of our guests very shortly.
Yeah.
And maybe you're aware of this also, Raul. Ricky and I talk about it. If you get out to the main hospital and on the first floor, just ask one of the volunteers as you walk in. They have a food pantry that the Veterans Guest House supports Monday through Friday, 10 a.m. until noon.
And they actually supply all the food.
Oh, I didn't know that. I was not aware.
Yeah. I mean, they have other organizations that help man the hours of the food bank, but they provide all the food. They literally comes out of their pantries that support the VA food bank. So, I mean, this is what local people do for our local veterans. It's a very much a pro-veteran and pro-family organization, and it's there as a support for our people, and it's our way of giving back. It's our way of saying thank you. Thank you for your service.
Well, I feel a little bit more optimistic with the change of our government here in the past 6 months or so.
Oh, yeah.
I think
would
I think
say.
we're going in the right direction.
It certainly has definitely changed for a more positive viewpoint for a majority of the people. And if you don't even have to take our word for it, just look at the recruitment goals. We couldn't even fill the Navy or the Air Force or even the Army. I couldn't even the billets that needed to be just replenished every year. We weren't even coming close. And now with the new administration, they're packing people for next year because they've already met their goals, and their goals go till 30 September, and these people have already met their goals here in March and April. That's amazing, the turnaround. People want to join the military now because they know if they join the service, they will get the experience, they'll get the training, and they'll get the camaraderie that they were hoping for and craving for, that their fathers and their grandfathers got. And they were telling them it's not like that now, because the Pat administration was all about different priorities. They were about different things that didn't have to do with combat capabilities, didn't have to do with military preparedness. It had to do with a lot of social issues and, a lot of trans issues and a lot of social engineering issues that have no place. I'm sorry, but I'm going to put it out there. It has no place in our military to tell people how to live their lives and how to be this person or that person. I mean, individuals can do what they want, but as an organization, we need camaraderie, we need morale, we need cohesion, we need organization. And you can't have separate people come in there and say, hey, man, I'm going to dress as a hippie, and the next person says, I'm going to dress as a Hindu monk. And those kind of things are not part of the military program. You want everybody to be in a sharp uniform. You want people to look like you see on TV at the White House, where these Marines are crisp uniforms and straight and narrow. I don't care what their color is. I don't care what their religion is. I do care how they look, and I do care how they present themselves. And I don't care what branch of the service you are or where you're located in the Congress of the United States or overseas. You represent the American people, and by gosh, by golly, you should stand up and be proud.
In terms of taking care of our veterans, your organization, you mentioned that hopefully in 2026, the Denham House is going to come online. $14 million. Let's hope that money is implemented where it should go. TBI, I guess, post-traumatic stress. You mentioned the word that keeps coming up, family support.
Yep.
I have a little survey here I'm going to mention to you. When we're talking about suicide, we're talking about the effect on family members. I have a report here in 2023 that almost 200 family members committed suicide. So when we're talking about the effect of traumatic brain injury on a veteran, we got to look at how that will impact that family. Because a family that, as you know, your separation away from home, whether it be combat or non-combat, you're away from home. And whoever's running that house, and we look at our young airmen right now and our sailors, whatever, and they don't make but minimum wage. And as Ricky was alluding to, and you did, we're getting back on track. But I'm saying, when you look at taking care of a family, as you're talking about family support, you have to realize the impact it has on the entire family, and could have. 200 suicides in 23 was too many for family members. So I just want to share that with you. So the whole discussion today is family.
Yeah, that's a very interesting. Never heard that before, but you always think about the service person that, has committed suicide or something, but not the families.
It affects the families just as much as it affects the service member, yeah. And, let's just be honest. A lot of people who are growing up today have a lot of fragile egos and fragile mental states, because a lot of the basics that people learned when they were in elementary school and middle school are not there as support that used to be there as basic support, and families and extended families that are not there. So it does put a burden on the immediate families to step up and do the replacement that society used to do in general. I mean, let's just look at code of ethics, where young people were taught that you have respect and you have a deference for the older generation who have lived through it and have gone through it, and now they're the senior and statesmen and elders and you give them respect. Well, a lot of the younger generation were never taught that. And unfortunately, so they just think that, hey, these just old people, these old coots, they don't know nothing and we don't care about them. Well, that breaks down society in a very crucial way because it's cohesion. It's a society cohesion.
Yeah, I was going to mention also, Raul, we talk again, support family. A lot of times and historically, as we know, is 3 males when we served. I'd say 95, 96 out of 100 who went off to combat, went off in deployment were men. Now that we've turned that around, and we're talking about women have come a long way with regard to support. And they've had a lot of issues they've had to overcome that maybe we didn't have to overcome. But I just want to share that in terms of the whole completeness, this whole concept of we together and we in terms of support and the agencies such as yours that goes out and looks out for the individual who has issues and trauma, but also looks out for the kids.
Do you have the number of females who are now in combat-related positions? Is it 3 to 5%, or is it more than that?
I don't know, but I would say it's probably doubled in the past decade at least. But I'll tell you right now, we say this. Now, women are no longer afraid to speak up. It used to be they were. You see a lot of heads, a lot of hacks coming down on a few people that thought they could get away with it and can't anymore. So I think it complements what Ricky has just said and what I think you're probably going to say also, Raul, that we're all in this in one organization. We're on this together, whether you're in service or when you get out.
Well, it's the old adage, we all bleed red and we all wear green. So
Yep.
that's how it works. I mean, you are who you are because you're the organization that you're in, and whatever the ethos and morals of the organization you are, you all represent them as equal partners in that organization.
Did you say you were founded in 2003?
Yeah.
John Folsom?
John Folsom, Colonel Folsom.
Have you always had the charter that you have right now? I'm looking at helps families and veterans reconnect events, support their bonding, traditional skills, et cetera, et cetera. Has that always been the charter, or has that changed?
As far as I know, that's what he started with. And again, it just after seeing some of the individuals coming back from the 2001, 2002, and basically thrown out on a limb. And that's what I said. His comment was, I'm going to go around and just pass the hat and see what kind of donation I can get. And that's where it actually started. Why he decided on a Mustang GT 500 beats the heck out of me, but it sure did work because I know he was driving down the road and these guys down in one of our sister Mustang places, Golden Hills Mustang, and they ran into him and said, well, we could help with that. And the next year in our Mustang Monthly magazine, he put out this to the Mustang Clubs of America that, hey, you guys think you can help me? And I think probably 20 or so Mustang clubs throughout probably more than that actually, maybe actually 30 Mustang clubs throughout the country. And we were one of the ones in Reno here. And again, in the beginning, we would get the car for 3 or 4 days in the beginning. And then a couple times we had to go to Salt Lake to pick up the car from the colonel or from somebody else, drove it back here, had it for 3 or 4 days, and then handed off down to Golden Hills in Sacramento, and they drove it. But it drove the whole country.
And I got a feeling you're going to answer how you're going to answer this next question. You put a lot of your own miles on.
Yeah.
Are you reimbursed every penny that you put on?
Nope, not a dime. In fact, we paid out out of our pocket for different things. We actually had a golf tournament that we actually set up, myself and my vice president, and we set up a golf tournament, and we put all the money up and everything else, and whatever money that we got, of course, that went into the fund. It was a lot of fun driving these cars and meeting a lot of different people down in Vegas. One year we went down to Vegas and picked up the car and drove it, and we actually took it on the track. It was a Mustang organization. We took it there was a
racetrack.
Yeah, I forget what it was. Might have been the 50th or something. I forget what it was for, but it was all Mustangs at the track, maybe 500 or 600 Mustangs, and they're driving around track, and they moved everybody off, and there was four or five people from Vegas, a couple of us from Reno, and a couple from Golden Hills Mustang, and we got on the track with the GT 500 and all of us and buzzed around the track. I know the colonel called me and said, hey, Raul, how fast you going? Oh, well, we're just doing about 40, sir. We were doing, you got to be doing 90 or 95 to stay up on the track.
I was going to say, just
fun.
to be on the circuit, you have to be going about 85, 90.
Did you ever see Ricky on 395?
Yeah.
Yeah,
No,
the reason you don't see me is because I just zip by.
No, he drives around with me all the time. I'm with him almost all the time we drive. He's with me, so.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you what I got for you. You talked about accessibility for handicapped veterans, those issues. I think you said wheelchair accessible?
Yeah, that was the thing with a couple of those Raptors, and we actually also drove a couple of Ford Explorers. I know a couple Explorers. We had one. It was kind of an interesting car. They took the middle seats out of the other two, and from there, they actually had a side door instead of a regular door opening, and they had a ramp. Person came in with the wheelchair up the ramp, and then they could be in the area where the middle seats were, and then if they were going to be the driver, and it was his car, there was no cockpit seat for the driver, and the wheelchair could go up and lock into position and a good hand control. So there's a lot of different outfits out there that modify vehicles for service people. Yeah, handicap. I remember one year, many years ago, we had a show up in one of the organizations. I had a whole bunch of military vehicles, everything, and one of the serviceman, young guy, drove up, and he had a Mustang, and he actually had his Mustang was actually squared away for because he had in-op legs, so it was pretty. So there's
and the reason I brought that up is, do you know Dan Walker?
Negative.
Marine retired. He and his wife.
They're wheelchairs.
Career Marines, the Northern Nevada Wheelchair Association. He does wonderful. He's been on our show several times, so we're going to ask to have him back. But you mentioned it's not so much, it's the vehicle, as you said, capability, but how we could take that down to the wheelchair, to the electric wheelchair, to the motorized wheel. I mean, to the rails, to the canes. There's so many ways in which we can help veterans, and we do. And I just want to bring it up because I did see on my notes here that you said wheelchair accessible, and nice discussion on that. I see people driving, and maybe I'm naive. I wonder, how in the heck are they able to drive? But if their vehicles are modified and refitted, so it's wonderful.
Yeah, it was interesting driving the vehicles. The Raptors, the two Raptors we had, plus the Explorer, so that was at least 3 years, and the steering wheel and the mechanisms, and that would make the throttle and the brake. And he would do it with his hands. So, it was interesting. I didn't do it because I was afraid to run into something. So I didn't want the colonel to get mad at me.
Yeah, having a wreck with the vehicle probably wouldn't be putting you on his number one hit parade list. So
No.
I agree with that. But, the colonel says he's naive or something. I know the colonel over 5 years, and there's one thing I can say about him. Naive isn't one a word I'd use.
But I got something else for you, too. And we talked about they got their pencil and paper. They sharpened their pencil. How do they get a hold of you? What is your organization?
Wounded Warrior Family Support, UW. And in that, as soon as you get on there, as we mentioned, the phone numbers that we talked about earlier, and in there was the phone numbers, shows the president in there now, and about 3 or 4 different numbers that you can go ahead and get a hold of them. And they'll stare you, it's just an organization. You're going to have to explain who you are, what you want to do, and of course they can help you.
Okay.
That's where you want to go.
Any paperwork involved? Any applications involved?
Well, it is.
It's online, right?
Yeah, it's all online. You'll see that. It's a whole thing there. But again, you got to talk to the individuals first to find out where you would fit into the program and what kind of what kind of activity would maybe be good for you, whether it be take your family on activities, whether in the future maybe you need a Dunham house or somebody else might need it, or whether you want to go ahead and do the welding, etc. So yeah, but it's all online.
You know what? We just got a chart pulled up. Nonprofit organization for veterans. I saw something here. It said 10.3 million in vehicle grants to combat wounded veterans, and you're part of that.
Yeah, that's in the past. Again, most of the vehicles we had would go to the auctions for a few years, and then other than that, towards the end, that the individuals would get it. But that 10 something in there, that's nowadays that $30,000 that I mentioned. If you have a Ford Focus and you're limited on money, and they could go ahead and contribute some dollars to help you close the deal. So that's where that money is. They actually have grants, is what that is.
Yeah. Well, here's something else too. Maybe you're aware of, I'm sure you are. Almost 1.5 million veteran families have been served through the Wounded Warrior Family Support Program. That's amazing.
Right. And for a small organization, again, it's not a big organization.
But it's been very effective.
Yes.
And it's been very helpful for over 1 million people. So you can't say it's not there and it's not doing yeoman's work for our veterans out there and their families.
And people are so giving in their donations, and yet that the donations are going in, 90% or so is going to the organization. That's the important thing.
You know what, Raul? We could almost say we could have a pitcher of beer and be having a couple of drinks, because right now it's like three guys talking to themselves.
Yeah.
To one another. But I got something I want to
ask. Out of your pocket.
I'm going to ask you something.
That's right.
Here.
You're going to be the beer provider.
I'm going to ask you a personal question, Raul. Okay? You've met many veterans through your work. What's one story that stuck with you and changed your perspective forever? Is there one? I know there's probably many, but is there one?
Well, being a naval aviator at the end of the war, in 1972 and 73, and watching the POWs come home, and then we went and on our cruise, on my first cruise, and I was from Lemoore, California. That's where the A7s, A4s, and of course the F-18s now are. And when I got to Lemoore in 71, there were more POWs, KIAs, and MIAs from that base than any other bases put together. That was the light attack. Light attack was doing all the bombing in Vietnam for the Navy. The A6s are from Whidbey Island. But the people that I met and who came back and were lieutenant commanders, and actually captains, and when you met them, and then of course reading the stories and some of the stuff that we learned before we ever went away, things that you had to know about that everybody else doesn't need to know. But there are some heroes, and everybody just did the job. They didn't go in there to be a John Wayne or anything like that. So that's just very broad.
It's kind of the old adage, when grandson asks you, "What'd you do, Dad or Granddad? Were you a war hero?"
Yeah.
And the answer is no, but I worked for a bunch of war heroes.
You have to remember that a veteran, it doesn't matter whether you swept out the hangar or whether you were the ship's captain or whatever you did, you're a veteran and you contributed to this country. That's the most important thing. Everybody's the most important.
Yeah, I got another personal question. Do you mind?
Go ahead.
All right. For our listeners out there who want to help but don't know how, what's the most meaningful way that someone can support a wounded warrior today?
I think mainly through the pocketbook, through the contributions. If you live near a VA facility, I know, I think a while back you guys may have had somebody, but actually our VA here, they look for people to drive the vehicles or drive a vehicle.
I see the DAV all the time. You know what I want to do, Raul, if you know somebody, Ricky and I do, but I want to get the DAV back on here. We haven't had them on for about 6 months.
No, we haven't, but we've had them scheduled coming through the year.
I sure hope so.
Yeah.
We need to get them in here. You're right. There's volunteers again.
Yep.
Volunteers. It's interesting. The discussion, we're down to about maybe 12 minutes or so before the end of our podcast. I think that's about right. But we're going to keep going. You notice we haven't paused much, have we? But there's a few interesting things. In your opinion, and you've seen people, we've all seen them, what does true healing look like? It's not just physically, but emotionally and spiritually. What does it look like for a war?
I think somebody can get up in the morning and actually feel decent, not be physically or mentally drained, and able to take care of your family, be with your family and your kids and your wife. Because if you don't feel good and bad things happening, then maybe you'll take it out on the kids and the wife or something like that. So,
well, and that's what we talked about earlier in our discussion. I was going to ask you something also. It slipped my mind for just a moment, but it'll come back.
Not a senior moment.
No, really, it's
It's
not.
a lieutenant colonel moment, actually.
No, hey, it's not the big one coming on yet, if you know what I mean.
Okay.
I wanted to just mention to you about a person who has served. Okay, we talk about the impact it has on the family. I know what I was going to tell you. We've had guests in here, Ricky and I, and Raul, you're a man you've been in combat. You've been around, surrounded in combat. And let me tell you, we have had from World War II veterans, a 99-year-old veteran, to a Vietnam medevac helo rescue, to a Korean War veteran. They eventually, as they talked to Ricky and I, we saw the tears starting to form up. Right, Ricky?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it gets very emotional.
They turn to us and say, why did I make it and they did not?
Right.
And what we always say
Survivor guilt.
By you being here, by you speaking here, you're speaking on their behalf. You're speaking for them.
Yeah.
So, we have seen the emotion. And we've had Gold Star mothers on here. Wow. We've had Matthew Axelson, the Navy SEAL, the Lone Survivor movie. We've had Tina Draculich, Gold Star mother who lost a son. And when you see them begin to well up, you got to begin to kind of, let's soften this interview off just a little bit. And you can get emotional. And we're talking now about family and family support and your organization, nonprofit for veterans.
Something you didn't address with families.
You
got to remember when, let's say a Navy boat goes out for 6 or 8 months, the woman is at home. She's got to take care of the kids.
That's exactly right.
You're an Army individual. You're out in fighting a war or whatever in a foreign country.
That's right.
You're gone for months at a time. The woman, the lady, or the man at home has got to do all the work. So that's where the family comes in. And if you have somebody in the family that doesn't like that and works counter to you, it makes it even worse for the individual, the serviceman or woman that is gone. There's added pressure on them because the family is going counter of what your job is.
And
one of the nice things
Ricky,
today that we didn't have back when we were on active duty in the military was now they have, with satellite communications, they have instantaneous. You can get on through the worldwide net and actually have a satellite point-to-point conversation with your family members more than once a week. I mean, we're talking 3 or 4 times. So you can actually bring your family members and see them so you're not totally disassociated with the families. And I'm talking about combat units in the field, Marines, Army, the Navy. These are great opportunities that they can get out of the front line and go to the Alpha area and actually talk to their families. I mean, it's amazing the communications capabilities that the U.S. military has today that it never even could conceive of 30 years ago. And that helps a lot.
We had the Red Cross on just recently. Never before have they been on the show.
That's right.
And wow, at the end of that interview with that individual, Bridget, it was an eye-opener because overseas I had help at least twice with the Red Cross, and it's amazing. Ricky said satellite. I mean, they can beam you right up, beam you right down into that wherever you're at.
Yeah.
And every
That's
base,
Scotty.
I think every base has a family support center, I believe. Now, something was brought up to me here. Contact Wounded Warrior Family Support. Omaha, Nebraska. Main office, I got a number. Can I give it for you?
Affirmative. You got it.
It's 402-502-7557. And there's a program office, 402-932-7036. And here's some feature that we didn't discuss that you're aware of. If you need help outside of business hours, there's a number to call. 932-703 is the program office, which to me, like it's almost like it's staffed 24/7.
Maybe so, yeah.
Hey, outstanding. Thanks for coming in.
You're welcome. My pleasure.
So, hey, Raul, it's always a gift for us that when you come in, because you're one of our regulars that we really appreciate you helping out your fellow veterans, and thank you for your service. Really
You guys.
appreciate it.
It's always a pleasure being with you guys all these years. Thank you.
Now, you know Jay Baker?
No.
Oh, he's worked for Warriors. He's been on several times. Ricky, he's going to be on for the podcast next week. Worked for Warriors, a wonderful guy. And he's a Navy guy, 30.
Go.
It's
There you
possible my whole family might be here. So.
But thanks for coming in. And
Thank you.
best wishes to, what's the organization again?
Wounded Warrior Family Support.